Extra.
Shalom everyone. We're in between Parshas Shlach and Parshas Korach. We're sandwiched in. Of course, in America they're reading Shlach this week. We have read Shlach and we're moving on. But I'd like to use several questions from Shlach, which will pave the way to understand at least a little bit about what Korach was fighting for and who he's all about. Okay. So, question number one. Question number one. Let's go through the series of events that led us down this downward slope to the tragedy that Korach's machlokas, and more importantly, the Marag. Because Korach wasn't the problem as much as the Marag. There is a major machlokas among the Rishonim regarding this sequence of events. Rashi's general opinion is ein mukdam u'mucha Torah. He often will make a comment to explain why the Torah placed out of sequence parshios where they are. But the Ramban, on the other hand, I mentioned this before, tends to try to look more at the sequence. He agrees in mukdam u'mucha Torah. However, the onus, whereas Rashi says all bets are off, don't assume anything. Rabbi says let's assume that there's a logic to the sequence, and it is sequential, unless proven otherwise. And hence, there's additional dimension of dorshim smuchim. Now, dorshim smuchim means that whether you hold like Rashi or whether you hold like the Ramban, there is significance to the sequence because we can derive from it various lessons. And that's really how Parshas Shlach began. Right? Because the story of the Meraglim came on the heels of the unusual, what we call almost bizarre, Lashon Hara of Miriam against Moshe, which is one of the things that we're asked to remember each and every day after davening. One of the 6 Zechiros, it's a mitzvah to remember what Miriam did, which means don't do that. The question is, what was so terrible? How could someone like Miriam say Lashon Hara at all? And if so, what did she mean? And why would it be the preamble, as it were, to the Ched of Marag? But in order to understand this, let's go back. The first thing that went wrong for Klal Yisrael was not the Ma'onim. But we had learned that in the Sefer Bamidbar, which is broken into 3 distinct Svarim, correct? Up until Vayibin Saharon, with backward nuns. Backward nuns. Bracketed by backward nuns. Which, by the way, represents 50, the ultimate level. So that's my perush to offer that was the peak. When we got to Vayibin Saharon, Moshe himself handled the chatzotros. He would move the camp by the word of Hashem, and that was the greatest moment that Klal Yisrael experienced since Matan Torah. They were primed and ready to enter Eretz Yisrael. How many days did that euphoria last? One day. Not even one day. Because as we learned last time, the misonanim, people began to complain. And what were they complaining about? They were weary of the trip. But as we said, the trip lasted all of one day and they covered 3 stations. In other words, they went the distance of 3 days in 1 day's travel. So what was their big complaint? Rashi says their big complaint was, we went 3 places without a stop. You know? Nobody had a chance to get a cup of coffee, like that place on Highway 6. What are you going to pay? We got to stop. And Hashem was angry. But what was his big anger? He was so angry at them that, what happened? The next thing is that they tried to complain about the food. And so it's always on a trip, we'll have them, they don't like the food. They don't like the food. And they complained about the mun. So one thing quickly led to another. They said, remember Zacharnu es hadaga. Remember the fish that we ate in Mitzrayim? We shavnu al shir habasar. We sat by the flesh pot, which is another story. Rashi says if they didn't give them straw, why would they give them meat? And the answer to that is actually very simple. Either they were working as slaves in Egyptian homes, so they would, in the kitchen, like even in the Holocaust, those that worked in the kitchen were able to smuggle a potato or this or that.
Not me.
Can you imagine? And here Hashem's feeding them on, and what they remember is being slaves in the Egyptian kitchens. So a fire breaks out. Who dies in that fire?
Or maybe the year during the plagues, they had good food.
Yes, that's true. That's not a bad approach. Yeah, that's not a bad approach. Okay, so who dies? Because we're going through the sequence. This takes us Parshas Maloscha, right? Maloscha, then Shlach, then Conquest. So in Maloscha, who dies in that fire? It says Ksei HaMachane. Rashi gives two opinions. Either it means like the Nebuch, the Asafsuf, the low people who were complaining about the food, or the highest people. Ksei means an edge. The case. When something comes to a head, it could be the pinnacle. It comes to the top. The 70 elders. Which 70 elders? That Yisro recommended that Moshe set up this system, right? And Moshe immediately does. And that was, according to many, according to Ramban, before the Torah was given. Okay? And they were the 70 elders that looked at Hashem's presence. Again, the question is Shvatim. Vayochlu vayishtu. Somehow they overstepped their boundaries and they took in more of the Nevuah than they were supposed to.
That's possible.
It's a very good question.
What was the question? Is that possible?
What was their sin? What does it mean? Yochel, at least that's a whole shiur, long shiur in itself to decide what that's all about. But very, very bekitzer, somehow it means that they were not ready for what Moshe was experiencing. Remember, it was Moshe first, then Aaron Abanov, Shivim Skaniim, Klal Yisro. And they somehow jumped their place. So in other words, the revelation that was being revealed there, right, they
didn't run away from it.
They didn't run, no, Adrabah, they ran towards it. Much like who ran towards the revelation of Hashem's Shekhinah on the Yom HaShmini, the first day of the Mishkan's, Navio. And what happened to Navio? They were burned by fire. So too, the Shivim Skaniim were similarly burnt by fire.
I learned, Rabbi, that it was like that, not their first. They sat down and ate.
Somebody deal with this, Charlotte.
I learned that it was not their first.
Sorry?
I learned that it was not their first. They sat down and ate.
Right. It could be very simply taken that they sat and they ate, or metaphorically, the Meforshim say, sitting and eating is a metaphor for whatever nevuah they experienced while still in a gashmiya state that wasn't unworthy of it. They went beyond what they were supposed to do, or they dragged what was high to a low level. Either way, food. Again, food.
No, I said boo.
No. Notice the connection. It's a very good point, because the Asafsuf the fire broke out because of their complaints about food. So now you can understand a little bit what Chazal were sensitive to that and say, oh, you know who else died here? People who also brought food into the picture, a lower level than just a spiritual experience. Okay? And that's actually a very good insight. I'll credit you on that. That's how they knew that the two things are associated. It's very hard. But there's another reason. So Moshe Rabbeinu hears the phrase "Zacharnu es hadaga." We've got. It's now which day of the calendar year are we? Who remembers? The 20th day of Iyar. The day the Torah identifies as the breaking of the camp. when Moshe sounded the trumpets and the camp broke for the very first time, it was by Yisro, almost the 20th day of Iyar. On the 20th day of Iyar started the complaints. On the 20th day of Iyar started the fire. On the 20th day of Iyar, the 70 elders
A lot of things
were
happened.
scorched to death.
Busy day.
Now, it was busy day. They died. Now, we don't know. The same question is about Nadav and Abihu. The consensus, as the Mefarshim say, Rashi says, is that they didn't burn, their bodies weren't burnt to a crisp, but rather their neshama was burnt from the inside. By the way, that's very logical because in the Torah, when we speak about the punishment of sreifa, right, there's 4 punishments that the Torah speaks about. Arba, misos, nimsur, bezdin. What are they?
Hanging, stoning, burning.
Skila, sreifa, hereg, chenek. Skila, stoning. Doesn't mean exactly what you think. It doesn't mean initially that it takes stones and stone them. By the way, like Habdul elephant goes. The Arabs do. Our Palestinian chevra, if there's a girl who shames the parents, which is patterned on the thing of Basconi, but she gets straight, they stone them. But when they stone them, they actually do a weird copying or hybrid of what the Torah says. They stick them in the ground for their necks and they stone them on their heads until they're dead. They do it hard. Oh yeah. And if you don't think this is happening today, it's happening today.
Very violent society.
Well, also, pride is more important than life, which is why they're not interested in the $50 billion that the Kushner real estate company is offering them. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Really? Yeah, for the $50 million?
$50 billion.
Yeah.
What?
Included the peace plan.
Kushner?
The peace plan for the Palestinians is a massive investment of $50 billion. $50 billion.
Plus.
That's just the beginning. And with revenue calculations, in other words, and they're going to make a connection between Gaza and the West Bank so that the whole country can be filled with terror. Baruch Hashem, it's not enough, it's just in one border. It's got to be every border. But be the man, Hashem is in charge. But what does it show? It shows that you could give them all the money in the world, which is exactly what they were offering. All the money in the world. And it will not budge them. Because they're not interested in living. They're interested in the death of the dream of Eretz Yisrael in the hands of Am Yisrael. That's the backward note, which will get us into our, I'm not going to launch into it now, but the backward note also stands for the Nachash. The Nachash, which is the bad Nachash, who was co-opted by the Satan to take up, to break up the shidduch between Adam and Chava and to destroy the very first Shabbos. To destroy the shidduch. I'm not going to go into that right now, but let's go back here. So, what happened? 20th day, the shidduch
You
came.
mean
Now,
that they divorced?
it was worse. It was worse than a divorce. It was an affair.
An attempted affair.
No, a real affair.
It was okay.
As I'll say.
Between the Nachash and Chava.
And what was produced? Shaded. Most of the problems of our world today are based on the influence of the Satan, of course. And the female part of that is called Lilith. And she came into being because Chava and Adam separated. So Adam had a different partner, a partner for 130 years, which was evil. Again, we can't go into this. It's great. Cain and Hevel were twins. Okay? They were born where? In Gan Eden. Right? Cain was all evil. Every part of Cain was destroyed. Hevel was the Gilgal of Moshe Rabbeinu, who right away is the one to redeem the world from the Nachash, which is Begematria. Mashiach.
What?
Which Shiur.
So what happens now is that Moshe Rabbeinu, who has taken the Yidden out of Mitzrayim, performed 10 makos, miracles with dozens of miracles on the Red Sea, defeated Paro, the most powerful regime, both in terms of its evil and its power and its science and its knowledge. And then he hears the people say, we remember the cucumbers and we remember the watermelons, the apatia and the kishuim. And what does Moshe Rabbeinu do? He quits. He says, I only basar. You expect me to feed these people meat? They want basar. And he says, you want me to carry them kasher yisa ha'omeng, like a nursemaid carries a baby to feed them milk? So he quits. And Hashem says, okay. Esfili shivim zakenim. Bring me, I'm going to give you a replacement of those 70 elders. So what caused Moshe to quit was the death of the 70 elders. He had no one to help him carry the burden of Am Yisrael plans. What? Yeah, but they're more like extensions of Moshe. But Moshe had a full team. 70s who came. They're gone. Now I heard a famous story from Beryl Wine. I think I must share this with you. Who asked the question, why did Moshe succumb to this? Okay, so the Shivim Skanim will get more Skanim. Come on. It's a personnel issue. Human resource management. We'll go for interviews. Shuls love it when they can start again for the rabbinic search committee. Wow. Everybody could fight over it. So, what was the big deal? Why did Moshe cave? So Rabbi answered with a story. He says when he first was selected as rabbi in Florida, he was rabbi at the 41st Street Shul for a number of years before he came to the OU in New York and so on. Once he became rabbi there, and he was invited to a simcha in Borough Park. Now, Borough Park, the minhag is no one listens to speakers. Can you ever imagine such a thing? If someone gets up to speak, like at a bris or something like that, nobody is quiet. They keep talking. The speaker has to speak over the crowd. So they warned him, says, Rabbi, listen, we want you to say a few words. Don't be offended, but no one's going to listen. But we'd be honored if you say a few words. We can put you on the video, we'll have a microphone, we'll hear what you said, we'll record it for posterity, but no one knows. He says, okay, he was mentally prepared. So he gets up and he starts to speak. He's still quite a youngish man. And then he wasn't prepared for the onslaught of sound that engulfed the room of everybody talking on top of their lungs while he was trying to speak. And he was, he went along until one person got up in a very, very loud voice and said, "Pass the pickles!" And that was it. He just couldn't go on. That's what happened to Moshe Rabbeinu. I have no one to talk. You're complaining about pickles. I'm here to talk to you about the Rebbeinu Shalom and Eretz Yisrael and growing and going beyond your humanity to become angelic. You know that Moshe Rabbeinu, this is so important, crossed over the line between human being and Malach, according to the Rambam, and was transformed into a Malach. This is a Rambam. This is not a Zohar. The potential of the human being is to go so high, and he says everybody can be Moshe if you can control your actions and your deeds and your desires and your thoughts to such an extent and log into HaKadosh Baruch Hu 24/7 that will draw you up to the level of Moshe Rabbeinu. What level was he, by the way? The 50th level of knowledge, the backward nun Vayibin closed the book on Moshe Rabbeinu. Why? Because he had crossed the line from man to man. Now we know. He crossed that line on which day? On the day of Yom Kippur, when he came down with the second Luchos, having rescued Klal Yisrael with his pleas, right? And he comes down, and on that day, not in the first Kabbalah Satorah with the magical, mystical Luchos that he broke, but when he came down with the second Luchos, right? And we had a whole shiur about Luchos and Chalos. Remember that Luchos are really Chalos. They're meant to become bread, meant to become real. They're meant to become real life. He brought them down, and his face shone. And because his face shone, he had to wear a mask when he wasn't talking to Klal Yisrael. But when he did speak to Klal Yisrael, he removed the mask, and he let everybody see his shining light. One problem. They were still scared. Moshe Rabbeinu was no longer one of us. And that departure started in Yom Kippur. Now what happens right after Yom Kippur? What does Klal Yisrael do? They start building the Mishkan. Who's given that task? B'Tzalel, not Moshe. Moshe is kind of behind the scenes. He puts them. He gives the direction, but he's not directly building the Mishkan. Now, if you think about it, the Melech in Klal Yisrael is Boneh Beis Hamikdash, is the builder of the Beis Hamikdash. And he was the builder. He did erect it, but still, who is the real Kohen, the ultimate Kohen? Aaron. When was Moshe a Kohen? Only during the first week, to show that there's a transition here. Mishkan, which represents the bringing of Ma'amad Har Sinai into our lives, right? And the Ramban goes on about that, how everything about the Mishkan Beis HaMikdash was a dugma of what happened on Har Sinai, exactly. Just like you have Moshe going up into the mountain and nobody could go but Moshe. Where does nobody go but the Kohen Gadol? In the Kodesh Kodashim. It's all a model, a portable model of Sinai, which is then going to be transplanted onto Har HaMoriah. That's it. And that's what happened. The Moshe Rabbeinu was that only one who went up to Hashem, and the reality is, he never fully came down. He came down, but he wasn't the Moshe Rabbeinu that took them out of Mitzrayim. So what happens? They build the Mishkan. They gather everybody. Aaron starts, and then that was the first day of Nisan, right? It was the glorious day, and even more glorious was the Pesach that followed, because after Rosh Chodesh Nisan, after that first day when Aaron started working as Kohen Gadol officially, they were given all the laws of they had to do a Karban Pesach. The first one since Mitzrayim. Okay, this is the first one after Matan Torah.
And the only one through the whole desert.
What's that?
And the only one throughout the desert they didn't have it.
That was the only one that they would have until Yehoshua, servant of Moshe. We'll get to him in a minute. And that was the pinnacle. So now you're at the end of Pesach, which is the 23rd of Nisan. Okay? Excuse me. Okay, and then 1 month later, in other words, from Rosh Chodesh Iyar, is where Sefer Bamidbar starts. And on Rosh Chodesh Iyar, after Pesach is over, everybody came back from the hotels, everybody came back from from Punta del Este, or wherever they went. Hopefully not Dominican Republic. And they went there to die. It's for the birds. Anyway, so Rosh Chodesh Iyar, we're ready to march to Eretz Yisrael. Yom Tov's over. Let's get ready to roll. So everybody's counted. The Leviim are given their assignments. The structure of the march and processional to Eretz Yisrael, which was going to take how many days?
1 day.
How many days travel was it? It was 11 Yom Chor. We said at the beginning of Devarim. from Har Sinai to the plains of Moab is a total of 11 days travel. And they did 3 days worth of travel on one day, which means they would have been in Eretz Yisrael in time for Shabbos. In time for Shabbos. 4 days. Okay? That was the whole thing, right? If they traveled 3 a day, they would have gone in on the 4th day, and I would have, I don't know, I have to investigate this further, but I imagine that day would have been Shabbos. I have to look into it, I'm sorry. I suspect that it might have been Shabbos.
And it was permissible.
That was, a lot of things are permissible in the Mishkan. Shabbos that are not. Yeah. No, come on a second. So now, Moshe Rabbeinu hears the cries of the pickles, and he says, they don't want to go to Eretz Yisrael. How do I know? We traveled 3 days worth. They should have been so psyched. Hashem is speeding us into Eretz Yisrael. We'll be there in time for Shabbos. And what are they saying? Look, we could have used a rest stop over there. We could have stopped over here. And then the food is not acceptable. Moshe Rabbeinu saw the distance between him and the objective of Moshe leading us into Eretz Yisrael. And his Shivim Skenim are gone. Those guys, the Shivim Skenim that he had originally, were on a tremendously high level. Maybe they went a little bit too far. Gone. Moshe Rabbeinu says, and you expect me? If they couldn't last and they're not available, how do you expect me to carry these people by bringing them the meat and so on that they need? I'm not that person. Moshe Rabbeinu brings what? What food does Moshe Rabbeinu bring to Klal Yisrael? Man. What is man? Man is the food of the Malachim. It's lechem abirim. That's what Moshe's holding. He said, oh God, where's the beef? There's no beef. That's not Moshe Rabbeinu. What are you going to do now? So Hashem says to him, listen, there are 70 other guys. They're not the guys you had before. I'll tell you who they were. They were the union leaders, the bosses, the guys on the trenches who commanded the Jews when they were doing the bricks, that stood up in front of the taskmasters and got beaten they didn't fulfill their quotas. They're the ones that soothed and rallied the energies of Klal Yisrael to be in the most difficult of times. Those guys. That's who they can relate to, and that's who they need. That's who they need, because they're going to go through difficult times, and they need somebody who they remember pulled them through disappointments and difficult moments. Not when everything is grand and glorious, but when everything is nun backwards. That's the guy we need. By the way, nun also stands as the symbol of fish. Fish. Nivei Nun is Nineveh, the city that did Tshuva. There was a big Yom Kippur. It was a fishing city. And what do we call Yeshua? Yeshua ben Nun. The one who can deal with the question, Zacharnu es ha-tada. He's the fishman, in every neighborhood. Go for a nice fresh piece of fish. That does, I can deal with it. I can play that role. Moshe Rabbeinu cannot. Now what happens? The minute that these 70 elders are chosen, how are they chosen? 6 from each shevet, but that gives us how many? 6 times 12 is 72. So there were 2 people who were going to be rejected. So there were 2 tzaddikim that said, it's probably us, and we don't want to embarrass anybody. Well, anyway, so we'll go home. Who were those 2 guys? Eldad and Medad. And what happens to them? When those 70 elders are picked, and Hashem pours from the Ruach Kodesh of Moshe down to their level, where they could receive it, but Hashem himself gives Nevuah to Eldad and Medad. Okay? And they say a Nevuah. What Nevuah do they say? Is that a nice thing to say? I mean, they were so sensitive and kind, and they didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and they were so modest. Why would they get up and say, Moshe's going to die, and Yeshua will lead us? Isn't that a terrible thing to say? Even if you know about it. And now, there is a halacha. The Mishnah says in Makos, which is the end of Sanhedrin, that a Navi cannot conceal his nevuah. And if he does, it's machlokas, whether he dies, he's put to death, or whether Hashem deals with him. That there's no corporal punishment for him, but Hashem, Anochi Edrosh Mi'imo. So they had to talk up. So what was the business of having this nevuah at this time? What was the business of it? What's the point of it? So I'd like to suggest that's exactly what happened when these 70 elders were selected, is that Moshe had retired. He retired. He retired from his original role and said, and as we already foreshadowed this. I'm going to tell you, I'll remind you, we spoke about in the Shiur, about Az Yashir Moshe. Az Yashir Moshe, the Gemara Sanhedrin says, is the proof of Tchias HaMesim Min HaTorah. Moshe sang in there, he'll sing in the final redemption. What do you mean final redemption? Moshe is the final redemption if there's no golden calf, if there's no pet eagle. What kind of final redemption? Because already they saw at the Yam Suf that this is not the end of the story, that Moshe Rabbeinu is not the final Mashiach. Why not? So you say because of our flaws, which is true. But also because Klal Yisrael is not ready. They're just not ready.
It's also not from Yehuda.
Correct. But Moshe Rabbeinu's force, it says, Tiviemo v'titaemo bahar nachlasecha. Tiviemo, Hashem will establish the Beis HaMikdash. Not Moshe, Chazal say, Moshe will not be there when you build that first Beis HaMikdash. Now, so this is why, in my opinion, Eldad Umeidad said this nevuah to prepare Klal Yisrael for this new thing. Say, guys, this is the new generation. We're the leaders. This is what's going on. Who didn't like it? Gershom ben Moshe didn't like it so much, right? Gershom ben Moshe didn't like it so much. He comes and says, "Adoni Moshe kila'im," put them in prison or shut them down. Moshe says, halavai, that everybody should be Nevi'im. In other words, Moshe gave his blessing to what they said, because it was the truth. He says, halavai weiter. Okay. Now, therefore, the immediate thing that happens next, after those Shivim Skadim appear, there's a number of things that happen at the end of Shlach. I'm not going to go into detail right now, but that was what set the tone for the Meraglim. Because what were the Meraglim about? Now that we have passed over, and Moshe will not be the one to lead us into Eretz Yisrael. And whose responsibility is it? It's our responsibility. So we need a plan. We need a detailed plan. Mahavda, like Jared Kushner, very detailed. You're going to get projections and images, a 96-page booklet. We need a 96-page booklet. We want to be prepared. And Moshe says, fine. Why? Because he's no longer responsible, so to speak, to ensure they're crossing over into territory. Yes, technically, it could have been